Let me ask you something a little different today. When you were younger, love probably looked very different. It was phone calls that lasted 3 hours. It was dressing up just to see someone. It was waiting for a message. It was butterflies in your stomach. It was somebody saying, "I miss you," every 5 minutes. But after 60, love gets quieter. And somehow, it can become much deeper. Because after retirement, after the children have grown, after the busy years of work and rushing around have finally slowed down, you start seeing people differently. You start noticing the small things. Who checks if you got home safely? Who remembers how you take your tea? Who notices when you're unusually quiet? Who sits beside you even when there is nothing important to talk about? Who still wants to hear about your day when your day was basically breakfast, a walk, one phone call, and wondering what happened to the price of everything? And that's where love becomes interesting. Because after 60, someone doesn't have to impress you anymore. They don't need to pretend. They don't need to chase you around the room. They don't need to write you a love poem every Tuesday. Sometimes love is simply, "I bought the bread because I knew you were almost out." That may not sound romantic when you're 25, but at 65, that can feel like poetry. And today we're talking about 7 signs someone truly loves you after 60 through the lens of Carl Jung's psychology. And I want you to stay until number 7, because the last one is probably the quietest sign of love. But it may be one of the most powerful, so settle in. Maybe you're drinking your morning tea. Maybe you're sitting in your favorite chair. Maybe you're watching this while somebody in the next room is making enough noise to remind you that retirement does not always mean peace and quiet. Whatever you're doing, stay with me. Because this isn't about perfect relationships. It's about real people, real love, real life after 60. And maybe somewhere along the way, you'll realize someone already loves you more deeply than you thought. Sign number 1, they care about your peace, not just your company. One of the biggest signs that someone truly loves you after 60 is that they care about your peace. Not just having you around, not just having somebody to talk to, your peace. Think about that. When you're younger, relationships can sometimes be about excitement. Where are we going? What are we doing? Who is calling? What are we buying? What's happening this weekend? But as life gets quieter, your priorities change. You start realizing that peace is expensive, and you don't want to spend your remaining years arguing over things that don't even matter. Someone who truly loves you understands this. They don't constantly create drama. They don't make you feel like you're walking through a minefield every time you open your mouth. They don't turn every small disagreement into a family meeting. They know that sometimes you simply need a quiet afternoon. Maybe you're sitting outside. Maybe you're watching television. Maybe you're reading. Maybe you're doing absolutely nothing. And they don't come along asking, "Why are you so quiet? What are you thinking? What's wrong? Are you upset with me?" Sometimes nothing is wrong. You are simply enjoying the luxury of not having to rush. And someone who loves you understands that. Carl Jung spent a lot of time talking about the inner world of people. As we grow older, that inner world becomes more important. You begin to understand that happiness isn't always about having more. Sometimes it's about having fewer things disturbing your peace, and a loving person respects that. They may say, "Take your time. Get some rest. Don't worry about that. Let's talk about it tomorrow." That's love. Not the dramatic kind. The grown-up kind. The kind that says, "I don't want to make your life heavier." And here's something beautiful. Sometimes the person who truly loves you isn't the person who makes your heart race. They're the person who helps your heart rest. That's a completely different kind of love. And if you have somebody like that in your life, don't take it for granted. Because after 60, peace becomes one of the greatest forms of wealth. Sign number 2. They remember the little things. Here's another one. They remember the little things, not just your birthday, not just your anniversary. I'm talking about those tiny details you mentioned once and probably forgot yourself. You said 6 months ago, "I don't really like that kind of bread." And somehow they remember. You said, "My knees don't like those stairs." And they remember. You said, "I like my coffee a little weaker." They remember. You said, "I've always wanted to visit that place." And months later they say, "Remember that place you told me about?" That is powerful, because love is often attention. When someone truly cares about you, your little details become important to them. They notice, they listen, they store little pieces of you in their mind. And after 60, this can mean even more, because you've lived long enough to know that people can say beautiful words and still not care very much. You've also learned that actions tell the truth. Someone can tell you, "I love you," but never listen to you. Another person may never say it 10 times a day, but they know exactly how you like your tea. Now, I'm not saying tea is the secret to eternal love, but if someone knows your tea order after 20 years, that's something. At this stage of life, love often lives inside routines. The chair you always sit in, the side of the bed you prefer, the food you don't like, the song that reminds you of your younger years, the story you've told 47 times, and yes, they've heard it 47 times, and somehow they still listen. That's love. Because they're not just listening to the story, they're listening to you. And there's something Carl Jung understood very well about human beings. We all want to feel seen, not admired, not entertained. Seen. Someone who loves you doesn't just see your face. They notice your mood, your habits, your fears, your dreams, your little changes. They notice when your smile isn't quite the same. They notice when you're tired. They notice when something is bothering you even before you say it. And sometimes they simply ask, "Are you okay?" Not because they want gossip, because they genuinely want to know. That's a beautiful kind of love. Sign number 3. They don't try to change who you've become. Now this one is important. After 60, you have history, you have memories, you have mistakes, you have lessons, you have habits, you have things you like and things you absolutely do not like. At this age, nobody should be auditioning for a new personality. You've already been you for decades. So when someone truly loves you, they don't constantly try to redesign you. They don't wake up every morning thinking, "Today I'm going to fix this person." No, they understand that you're not a project. You're a human being. Maybe you enjoy waking up early. Maybe they love sleeping until 9. Maybe you like gardening. Maybe they don't understand why you talk to plants. Maybe you love old music. Maybe they think the music sounds like somebody forgot to turn the radio off, but they let you enjoy it. They don't have to love everything you love. They simply respect it. And that's a huge difference. Love doesn't mean two people become identical. Sometimes love means, "I don't understand why you enjoy doing that, but I know it makes you happy." That's maturity. And after retirement, this becomes even more important, because suddenly you're spending much more time together. Before retirement, you might have spent 8 or 10 hours apart because of work. Now, you may wake up and realize, "Oh, you're still here." And they're thinking the same thing. That's when relationships become very real. You see each other's routines, you see each other's moods, you see the good days, you see the grumpy mornings, you see everything. A person who truly loves you doesn't expect you to become somebody else just because you're getting older. They allow you to grow. They allow you to change. They allow you to discover new interests. They give you space, and they don't make you feel guilty for being yourself. That's powerful, because one of the greatest gifts you can give another person is permission to be themselves around you. No performance, no pretending, no trying to look perfect. Just, you can be yourself here. That's love. Sign number 4. They show up when life isn't fun. This one separates real love from convenient love. Anybody can be around when everything is good, when you're healthy, when you're energetic, when you're traveling, when you're smiling, when life is easy. But what happens when things aren't so easy? What happens when you're having a difficult week? What happens when you're tired? What happens when you're worried? What happens when you're dealing with one of those problems that makes you stare at the ceiling at 2 in the morning? That's when you discover who really cares. Someone who truly loves you doesn't disappear whenever life becomes inconvenient. They show up. Maybe they bring food. Maybe they make a phone call. Maybe they sit with you. Maybe they help with something practical. Maybe they don't know what to say. But they're there. And sometimes that's enough. After 60, love isn't just about romantic dinners. Sometimes love looks like someone driving you somewhere, helping you carry something, calling to check on you, sitting quietly beside you, reminding you about something important, or simply saying, "Don't worry, we'll figure it out." Those words can mean everything, because when you've lived long enough, you realize something. You don't need someone who promises you a perfect life. You need someone who won't abandon you when life becomes imperfect. That's a much bigger promise, and it doesn't always need words. Sometimes you can see it in their behavior. When you're having a bad day, do they become impatient, or do they become gentler? When you're struggling, do they criticize you, or do they help? When you're afraid, do they make fun of you, or do they reassure you? That's where love reveals itself, not during the easy days, during the ordinary difficult ones. Sign number 5. They still make you feel desired. Let's talk about something people don't always like to discuss. Getting older doesn't mean you stop wanting affection. It doesn't mean you stop wanting romance. It doesn't mean you stop wanting somebody to look at you and think, "Wow, you still look good." And yes, maybe the mirror has started giving you different opinions. That's life. But attraction doesn't disappear simply because the number on your birthday cake gets bigger. A loving partner still notices you. They may compliment your clothes. They may touch your hand. They may give you that little smile. They may tell you, "You look beautiful today," or "You look handsome." And sometimes it's not even about physical attraction. It's about making you feel wanted. That's important, because nobody wants to feel invisible, especially after retirement. You can go from being needed at work every day to suddenly having nobody asking where you are. You can go from being busy all the time to having long, empty hours. And during that transition, feeling loved becomes deeply meaningful. A person who truly loves you reminds you, you matter. You're still interesting. You're still beautiful. You're still handsome. You still have something special. And here's the funny part. Sometimes the compliment can be very simple. You're sitting there wearing an old shirt you've owned for 15 years. Your hair isn't cooperating. You're not exactly ready for a magazine cover. And they look at you and say, "You look good." And you're thinking, "Are you sure?" But you smile anyway, because what you're really hearing isn't just, "You look good." You're hearing, "I still see you." That's powerful. Carl Jung's ideas about the deeper self remind us that people aren't only what they see in the mirror. There's an inner person that still wants connection, meaning, affection, and recognition. Age doesn't erase that. If anything, it can make it more honest. You don't need somebody to flatter you every 5 minutes. But knowing that someone still finds you special, that can put a little sunshine into an ordinary day. Sign number 6. They want to know your inner world. This may be one of the deepest signs. They don't just ask, "What did you eat?" They ask, "What are you thinking about?" They don't just ask, "How was your day?" They ask, "How are you really feeling?" There's a difference. After 60, you have a whole lifetime inside you. Memories from childhood, people you've loved, people you've lost, things you regret, things you're proud of, dreams you never followed, places you've never visited, things you've never told anybody. A person who truly loves you becomes curious about that inner world. They may ask about your childhood. They may want to hear stories from when you were young. They may ask, what did you want to become when you were 20? What was your first job? What was your biggest dream? What was the happiest period of your life? And suddenly you're sitting there talking about something that happened 50 years ago, and they are listening. Not because it benefits them, because you matter to them. That's real intimacy. And it works both ways. You want to know their stories too, because after 60, you begin to understand that everybody carries a private world. Everybody has chapters nobody else has read. Everybody has memories they rarely talk about. Everybody has something underneath the surface. Carl Jung talked about the idea that human beings have a deep inner life. And when two people can meet each other there, something special happens. You don't have to entertain each other constantly. You can simply talk. You can sit together and discuss life. You can talk about regrets, dreams, family, old memories, future plans, even silly things. Sometimes the deepest conversations begin with something completely ordinary. Do you remember that old song? And 3 hours later, you're talking about your entire life. That's connection. And if somebody wants to know the person underneath your age, underneath your appearance, underneath your achievements, pay attention. They may love you more deeply than you realize. Sign number 7. They choose you in the ordinary moments, and here we are. The 7th sign. And I think this one might be the most beautiful. They choose you in the ordinary moments, not just birthdays, not just holidays, not just anniversaries. Ordinary Tuesday, ordinary Wednesday, ordinary Saturday morning. Those days when nothing special is happening. That's where real love often lives. You're both sitting at home. One person is reading, the other is watching television. Somebody gets up to make tea. Someone asks, "Do you want one?" And the answer is, yes. That's it. No fireworks, no orchestra, no movie scene, just two people sharing life. And somehow, that's beautiful. Because love after 60 isn't always about finding someone who makes every day exciting. Sometimes it's finding someone who makes ordinary days feel worth living. Someone who says, "Come sit here." Someone who saves you the last piece of your favorite food. Someone who waits for you. Someone who calls. Someone who notices you're quiet. Someone who knows when to talk and when to leave you alone. Someone who still wants to go for a walk with you. Someone who asks, "What are we having for dinner?" Even though both of you know you're probably going to eat the same thing you've eaten 3 times this week. That's life, and that's love. The beautiful thing is that after 60, you don't need to prove anything to each other. You can simply exist together, and that may be one of the deepest forms of intimacy there is. Carl Jung believed that as we grow older, life can turn inward. We become less interested in impressing the world and more interested in understanding ourselves. And perhaps that's why mature love can feel so different. It's less about showing everybody else that you're together. It's more about knowing that when the day ends, somebody is there. Somebody knows you. Somebody understands your strange little habits. Somebody remembers your stories. Somebody knows when you're pretending to be okay. Somebody knows which side of the bed you prefer. Somebody knows that when you say, "I'm fine," sometimes you're actually saying, "Give me 5 minutes, and then I'll tell you what's wrong." That person is rare, and if you have them, appreciate them. But here's something important. Let me slow down for a moment. Because maybe you're watching this and thinking, what if I don't have someone like that? Maybe you're single. Maybe you're divorced. Maybe you've lost someone you deeply loved. Maybe retirement has made you realize how quiet life can become. Maybe you're surrounded by people and still feel lonely. If that's you, please don't think this video is telling you that your life is incomplete without a romantic partner. It isn't. Love comes in many forms. A sister who calls, a brother who checks on you, a neighbor who notices when your curtains haven't opened, a grown child who sends a message, a friend who still wants to hear your stories, a person you meet later in life who makes you feel alive again. And sometimes, love begins with the relationship you have with yourself. That's something Jung's psychology can help us think about. As we get older, we have a chance to meet ourselves in a different way. Not the person we had to be for work, not the person we had to be for our children, not the person society expected, but the person underneath all of that. And maybe that's one of the great gifts of getting older. You finally have time to ask, what do I actually want? What makes me happy? What kind of people do I want around me? What kind of life feels peaceful? And that's powerful, because you don't have to spend the rest of your life chasing people who don't value you. You don't have to beg someone to notice you. You don't have to keep proving that you're worthy of love. The right people will make room for you. They will listen. They will care. They will respect your peace. And they will make you feel like your presence matters. So, let's bring it all together. If someone truly loves you after 60, they care about your peace. They remember the little things. They accept who you've become. They stay when life gets difficult. They still make you feel wanted. They care about your inner world. And they choose you in ordinary moments. Notice something. None of these signs require expensive gifts. None require fancy restaurants. None require a perfect body. None require a huge house. None require a young face. They're all about attention, presence, respect, care, and consistency. That's why mature love can be so beautiful, because eventually you stop asking, does this person impress me? And you start asking, do I feel safe being myself around this person? That's a better question. You stop asking, does everybody think we're a perfect couple? And you start asking, are we kind to each other when nobody is watching? That's a better question too. You stop looking for perfection. You start looking for peace. And maybe that's what love becomes when you've lived long enough to understand what really matters. Now I want to hear from you. Let's make this part personal. Which of these 7 signs means the most to you? Is it number 1, someone who protects your peace? Number 2, someone who remembers the little things? Number 3, someone who accepts you as you are? Number 4, someone who stays when life gets difficult? Number 5, someone who still makes you feel wanted? Number 6, someone who wants to know your inner world? Or number 7, someone who simply chooses you in ordinary moments? Put the number in the comments, and if you have a story about someone who showed you real love through a small act, tell us. You never know who is reading your comment. Someone sitting alone tonight might read your story and realize maybe love isn't gone. Maybe it's just quieter now. And if you're over 60, remember something. Your life isn't over because the busy years are over. Sometimes the quieter years are where you finally hear yourself. You can still love. You can still be loved. You can still laugh at silly things. You can still dress up. You can still flirt. You can still learn something new. You can still wake up one morning and say, today might be a good day. And honestly, that's a beautiful way to live. If you enjoyed this conversation, subscribe to the channel and stay with us. We're building a place where we can talk about aging, love, psychology, relationships, happiness, and the quiet parts of life without pretending everything is perfect. And if this video reminded you of somebody you love, send it to them. Sometimes people don't need a big speech. Sometimes they just need a little reminder. I see you, I appreciate you, and I'm glad you're in my life. And if you enjoyed this video, support me with a coffee. It helps me keep making these videos for you. Until next time, take care of your mind, take care of your heart, protect your peace. And don't ever believe that love has an age limit. Sometimes the sweetest chapter comes much later than you expected.